Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CampaignHer podcast. I'm your host and a portkey disguised as the Tri-Wizard Tournament Cup, giving you a one-way ticket to your own murder at the helpless age of 14, Allie Pippin. Ladies, gents, non-binary unicorn humans, we've got a really fun episode today, and I'm not just saying that because I have so much fun doing this, because I do so much fun, and hearing from all of you makes this so much more fun. I really genuinely think that this is fun. Doing a podcast is completely exceeded my own expectations. I've always been told that I have a face for podcasting and radio, but now I know I also have a knack and a voice for it too, so thank you. Wow. It is the end of August here in Central Florida, which means we've entered Halloween season. Soon, all Midwestern transplants to the sweaty swampland that is the Sunshine State will don flannels and boots and scarves and stand beside a cardboard box full of pumpkins at their local Publix and just pretend that it's fall. When it's not fall, it's just another summer because the state is purgatory. Groundhog's Day every day. Swamp ass every day. Hot heat. Humidity. And a million people 65 years and older saying it's not the heat that'll get you, it's the humidity. That's fall down here. And I'm just as guilty of it. I've embraced it. I've decorated my house already. My Aunt Fran, or I guess she's my cousin Fran, gave me a pumpkin when I got married. All the bride-to-bees get it. That's this ceramic pumpkin that is a jack-o'-lantern in the mouth. It's our name. And I just count down the minutes until I can put it out there. So the Pippin pumpkin is out. I've decorated my house. I'm going to put on my boots. I'm going to buy a pumpkin. I'm going to get with everyone in my neighborhood, and we're all going to carve these pumpkins up. And then we're all going to take bets on whose is going to rot the most overnight, because we live in a cesspool of heat and nothing survives. What a magical time. Wow. I really have always loved Halloween. As a kid, I've always been one of those kids, though, that is not into the traditionally scary stuff. I don't like horror films. I hate gore. But I love Halloween so much, and my Halloween costumes as kids have always been the obscure. I think when I was in 7th grade, so way too old to be dressed as a Disney character, I went as Flounder. That's a story to tell you on Halloween. Remind me to bring up the Flounder story. That was a wild trick-or-treat night. Anyway, I think all of my knack and love for the spooky and Halloween really started in elementary school. I don't know about all of you, but my elementary school curriculum had a typing class, which I remember being just 30 to 60 unsupervised minutes a day with the Webdings font and Microsoft Paint, being told to type up a little note about Christopher Columbus or something and turning in a full page of just fucking ambulances because the Webdings font is illegible, or making everything size 200 and using the old-timey Declaration of Independence font, printing that sucker out, and just looking at it like I'm a genius. I have a master forger, or something, and 2 sentences on 10,000 pieces of paper, and I'm holding a whole ream of paper. This is my magnum opus. This is what it feels like to be a writer, and create something. I remember in that typing class, one of our assignments being that we had to type up a book. And then we had to make covers out of construction paper. And I really, really, really enjoy writing. And I have for as long as I can remember and have been alive. I've been an avid journaler. I used to use my journals to write lyrics to country western songs I wanted to sing. I was a sad child with big dreams. And so the idea of having a book, a construction paper book, but a book nonetheless with my name on it, was enough to make me pee just a tiny bit with excitement. It was overwhelming. And I'm sure the other kids in my class wrote about normal little kid stuff like sports ball and flying unicorns and a soft bunny named Mittens who just wants to be loved. But I just had to be different. And I typed up a little construction paper story about a possessed coat that ate you alive when you put it on. I think the story I remember when something like this, a lady just found this coat at a thrift store and she was like, whoa, what have we here? Who would leave such a nice coat at the Goodwill? I shall care for it. So she puts it in her car and her dog is back there. And the coat fucking ate the dog. And the lady was just oh, well, dog must have run away. And then in the last scene, she opens the coat and inside is a tag, it's brand new. And she's stunned. this coat was at the Goodwill. Like, why would it have a tag on it? And she reads the tag, and it says some like little riddle. Like, I don't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was bad. And I remember this is where I threw continuity out the window because I decided that it was a cat the coat ate and not a dog, so that I could say, I ate your cat, and that is that. The coat had magical powers. It had the ability to draft a note at will about incidents that had just occurred. Anyway, she reads the tag. She's scared, but then she's like, oh, well, pranksters at the Goodwill, and put it on and looks in the mirror and just watches as the coat eats her alive. And I remember writing this and like rubbing my hands together like, mwahaha, this is so scary. I'm master of fear. Oh my God. And the cover, the construction paper cover, I decorated the cover with gel pens because hello 1990s, why the hell not? And I drew a coat, and it was a bad drawing. Like, let's just be real here. It had like big eyes where like the boobs were. Like that. Yeah. And the zipper was teeth. Like iconic. And mom, dad, if you're listening, did a teacher ever call home about the murderous story I wrote about a coat where its eyeballs were where the boobs were? Writing about murder at too young of an age? Just let me know. Might explain my true crime obsession now. But today we're talking about fears. I think we've got a really great episode. I'm sharing a story about the most scared I've ever been in my entire life. And later, I'm reacting to your fears that you shared with me over Instagram and email. So stick around. We will be right back. When I got this idea for this podcast, the first thing I had to accept was that I had zero idea what I was doing. And I wanted nothing more than to have someone just take this stuff that I'm thinking right out of my head and put it in your ears for you to listen to. And that's why I am so happy the Google Fairies led me to Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it is really the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. Number 2, it's free. Number 3, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. I have it on my iPad. Anchor then will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many, many more. And you get to make money from your podcast with absolutely no minimum listenership. It's really everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So, hey, if you're like me, you're ready to get into this sweet pod game, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today's hot topic, if murderous coats didn't give it away immediately, is fear. And I know no better way to talk about fear than by sharing the most scared I have been in my entire life. Bone-chilling fear. Like so scared. But before that, I need to lay some groundwork. It's a slow burn episode, people. I promise it's worth it. So when I was a kid, I had an inexorbitant amount of orthodontia. I admittedly and embarrassingly sucked my thumb until I was like 10. So my adult teeth were, to put it medically, jacked up. Okay, like it looked like a lumber truck dropped several downed logs in my open mouth. Like the gap between my 2 bucked front teeth was so large that you could just park an entire RV community between them. Okay, I had an overbite of buck teeth too, okay? And just like ragged, gapped teeth. I needed braces. I needed rubber bands. I needed headgear. I needed an expander, which my dad always forgot to crank. So like where he was supposed to spend 10 weeks cranking it like once a week, like a day before my orthodontist appointment, he'd be like, oh shit, I didn't do that. And just be like, Allie, brace for impact, as he just like ratchet crank the top of my mouth, and I couldn't close my mouth for like 48 hours, okay? I needed braces ultimately twice. And I had them on my mouth from like 3rd through 10th grades. And I still, to this day, have permanent retainers in my mouth, okay? That's why there's always like a subtle little like spitty sound to my voice. Okay. There was a brief moment of my childhood when I did have my braces off for the first time, probably around like 4th grade, 5th grade, and I was given a retainer to wear at all times. Have you ever had a retainer? The worst part about getting a retainer is by far getting molds done. To be able to wear your retainer, you have to like deep throat a metal frame full of like pink glue, paste, plaster, and you're like gagging. And your orthotech just yells at you to keep your mouth dry. And you're like, how? I will die if I eat this stuff, right? It will turn into cement into my belly. But like having a retainer was liberating. I could finally take the metal out of my mouth and bite into an apple. I could finally understand democracy because this was freedom. Okay, this was liberty. And when I got my retainer and I was just overwhelmed by this freeing feeling, nothing made me feel better and just felt more alive than clicking my retainer up and down against the top of my mouth. And remind you that, of course, my parents, who had basically a mortgage out on my mouth, were very forward with me that if I ever lost that removable retainer, they would disown me and sell me to a circus. LOL, the circus. We make jokes here. Probably, though. But there, was always a look in my dad's eye that he was, a tiny bit serious. Okay, would he actually sell me to the circus? Probably not. If my dad had Google in the 90s, would he maybe Google it to see if it was possible to sell children to Ringley Brothers, Barnum and Bailey? Who can say? Did I genuinely believe my life was in danger if I ever lost my retainer? Abso-fucking-lutely. Losing my retainer had no other alternative than to die and not have my parents find out. The fear of losing my retainer never stopped me from doing what I loved, however, and what I loved was clicking my goddamn retainer in my mouth, just letting it jangle loosely in the skin flaps of my cheeks like a handful of nickels rattling in a pocket, just slurping it up and down. Taking it out, again, just biting all the apples, just one bite, throwing the rest away, living with reckless abandon, wasting so much food because I could just chew gum again. Okay, and one day, I was walking along my neighborhood street, clicking my retainer like the goddamn loose cannon that I was, and I stepped over a rain retention grate in the road. Mind you, I was in the street. Because all bets were off. Okay, braces were off. Fuck sidewalks. Okay, I was on the street like a cool cat. Okay, and I want to make sure that you know that this was not a sewer that I was now stepping over. I want to make that very, very clear. It was for drainage. When the rain fell down on our street, they washed away into these drains so they didn't flood the street. Right? It's like what Pennywise lived in when he was biting the arms off the kiddos who were stupid enough to chase after a paper boat, instead of making another one when paper comes in reams of 500 sheets. But I still don't know what happened next. Standing on this grate. Was it a trip in my shoelace? Was it a breeze? Was it a crack in the shoulder? Did a ghost tap me on the shoulder? All I know, I don't know what happened, but all I know is I stumbled and my retainer that I had been clacking in my mouth flew out of my mouth and down it tumbled into the rainwater grate below my feet. And I instantly crouched down to see it sitting perfectly on the gravel deposits about 4 feet below the iron grate. And my first thought was simple. It was accepting. It was pensive. And that was, my dad is going to kill me. You know those cartoons where Bugs Bunny would fall back with a lily in his hand? Or, for people who are under the age of 30, those TikToks where people just walk out into the road and lay down in it. That was me right at that moment. White as a sheet. Full body quakes, but a mindset oh, well, okay, death's coming for me now. Might as well just lay here and make it easier for him to find me. Now I was right outside my house. I knew my dad was in that house. I could have easily asked him for help, but just the fear alone of telling my dad that my retainer was now at the bottom of a storm grate filled me with a bone-chilling fear. And I knew if I could just get down in that grate, get down in that well, I could grab it. And I started sweating. My heart was racing. I felt the tiniest bit of digestive unrest, rumbling like thunder in the distance of my bowels, knock, knock, motherfucker, I'm coming. And I looked at the grate, and I looked at my house, and I looked at the grate, and I looked at my house, and I looked at the grate, and I looked at my house, and I decided, I was I could tell my dad, I could get it myself. I could tell my dad, I could solve the problem. My dad could be out in any minute, and my dying, would commence. So I laced my fingers around the slats of the grate and I pulled, and the grate lifted and I swung it into the middle of the street. The sound, which was quite loud, of the grate hitting the pavement attracted my neighborhood friends who came over to see what I was up to, and we all laid on our bellies and looked down at the retainer 4 feet below us. And there was no easy way to climb down and back up again. So we devised a plan using sticks. We got the longest ones we could and just started trying to pick the retainer up like one would try to pick up a single grain of rice if holding a chopstick in each hand. Just no technique, just jabbing at it. This didn't work. Spoiler alert. And y'all, the fear thunder from my bowels was getting louder. I was gassy. Okay. And maybe it was the gas. Maybe it was the 3 or 4 underage children chopsticking something in the storm drain. But our adult neighbor, Paul, came over to see what was wrong. And he had the idea that we could makeshift a little reel with fishing wire. to hook the retainer instead of like whatever the hell we were doing. So he fashioned that for us. And I want to know what level of desperate we were looking if like an adult man was like, shit, I could spend 20 minutes on retainer removal, right? So anyway, our like makeshift retainer retriever failed over and over and over and over and over again until finally it didn't. And as I watched my retainer make its way closer to me as we just like picked the stick up and we had to walk back, we had no like reel, right? I felt this immediate sense of relief and of pride. Like my parents would never know what happened here and I would never be in trouble. So with the retainer safely out of the well, I put it safely back in the pocket of my jeans. We kids all turned our attention to this metal grate that now lay in the middle of the street. And when I picked it up and threw it, I remember it lifting so easily. So I was like, guys, I got this. Don't worry. Go back and play your sports ball, right? And so I laced my fingers around the slats again, just as I had done, and I gave it a tug and it didn't move. All of the neighborhood kids, 5 of us total, lifted together and we barely got off the ground. And the fear set in again as we like realized, oh shit, like how am I going to explain this sewer grate being off in the middle of the street? So we solicited the help of our friend Paul, a fully grown man, to help us. And once again, as we put the thing back in the ground, I felt the relief, as if we had all, we had done it. It was over, right? The evidence of my almost losing my retainer was gone and I had enough adventure for the day. And so I went inside and my dad was in the kitchen and he saw that I wasn't wearing my retainer. So the first thing he said was, "Where's your retainer?" And, just completely unaware of the chaos that had just ensued right outside of his home, right? And I said, oh, and reached in my pocket, pulling out the unharmed retainer like Cinderella pulling out the other glass slipper. And I was like, right here. And then I popped it into my mouth, never mentioning what happened again. Side note, it's a freaking miracle I didn't die from some waterborne illness after that. Who the hell knows what's in rainwater? That was rushing over my retainer, and I just put it in my pocket and then put it in my mouth. 20 years ago, I knew that if I entered my home without my retainer, let alone told my parents my retainer was at the bottom of essentially a well, I would have been in so much trouble. And that fear was enough to power my body to lift and throw something at least double my body weight at the time. Okay, like I was endowed with the strength that mothers have when they pull their cars off of trapped children, okay? It powered me. That fear powered me to get crafty, to invent, to ask others for help, to solve the problem so that I could avoid the thing that scared me, which was being sold to the circus. And looking back on this, it's funny. It's funny as hell. It's funny to laugh at the image of me throwing the storm grate the way, say, the Incredible Hulk would throw a live bear across an active river. But as an adult, I acknowledge that my fear was not so much about a lost retainer, so much as it was about disappointing my parents. My parents are incredibly loving, and they are always challenging me to do my best. And that can mean that I was always incredibly aware of when they knew I didn't do my best. And I felt an immense, intense amount of guilt and shame when I knew that I let them down. And so if I had told them I lost my retainer, they would have been furious, sure, but whatever punishment they gave me or how long I was grounded without, we didn't even have like electronics back then. So what would they take away from me? Pop-Tarts? Okay, how long I was grounded without Pop-Tarts? Nothing would be as bad as the punishment I would put myself through. So years and years and years later, 20 years later to be exact, I finally had the guts to tell my dad what had happened that day. And I didn't leave out a single detail, especially when it came to the powerful fear of him causing me to like harness Hulk-like strength and remove a solid steel grate from the road and throw it roughly 5 feet away. And then it was my dad's turn to surprise me. He looked me in the eye and he said, yeah, I knew about it. I've known all along. He had watched the action play out that whole morning 20 years earlier. And I asked him, I was like, why didn't you say anything that day? Like, why did you let me get away with it? And he simply said, because you handled it and you never lost your retainer again. What my dad's talking about indirectly here is grace. Okay. Grace is giving people forgiveness and empathy when they don't deserve it. Okay. As easy as it is and was for us as parents to like instinctively yell when our kids do something wrong, or, for people without kids to just beat ourselves up when we do something wrong ourselves, it's really hard not to say anything. it's really hard not to drop an "I told you so" or "you know better," right? We want to use those moments to teach ourselves and the people we care about lessons, right? To make them cautionary tales so that those actions never repeat themselves. So my dad saw me drop the retainer. He saw me panic. He saw that panic turn itself into a motivator to get shit done. He saw me get the shit done. He saw me learn my lesson. Retainers are for my mouth and not a place for where rain goes. And his support was never making me feel bad about it. Never letting me know that he knew what I did. And maybe getting me checked for some waterborne illnesses, okay? The point of the lesson today, what I want the lesson of my retainer and the storm drain and my panic and my Hulk-like strength is, one, fear me. Okay, because when I'm in a difficult situation, I apparently can be endowed with the strength of 10,000 men. But also, more realistically, fear is a powerful motivator. While we can and should never successfully incentivize others with fear, right, scaring them into doing something that we want, recognizing the fear that we have inside of ourselves can really help us identify where we need help and give us the power to ask for that help when we need it. Fear can also give us a burst of energy to physically move our bodies in ways we never thought we could to just get stuff done. And maybe most of all, what I want you to take away from this is that all that action fear can push us to do can help us not become our own bullies. So instead of crying about how you lost a retainer and your parents were so mad and disappointed, and you still feel that disappointment and shame and guilt 20 years later, you're laughing about it on a podcast as a reminder for all of us to embrace our fears from time to time. In times where someone you love is scared, I hope you focus on the actions they took to make themselves feel safe again, instead of whatever happened to get them in that fearful spot in the first place. And when you see that fear in others, I hope you provide the same amount of grace to yourself as you would to them. We'll be right back after this. On the topic of sharing our fears, I asked all of you to submit some of your fears to me, either current or from your childhood. Share them with me on Instagram. So I'm just going to read through some of these. I have them written on little note cards right here and share them. And hey, if you hear any of these fears and you relate to them, let me know. We'll post a pic of the fears I'm reading on Instagram. So you can comment, you can raise a hand, you can post that emoji of like the girl who looks like she's like holding a tray, you know, you can tell us how you overcame that fear, whatever. Like we're all just cowering in our collective fears together. So let's get to it. Okay, this first one says, I bought my husband a drone and I'm scared to death it's going to get stuck in my hair. Oh my God. This is too real. Oh my God. Okay, do you guys remember back in like the 90s when they released this new Cabbage Patch doll that could actually like chew and eat? And you fed it like a single spaghetti noodle or something and it like munched and crunched it and digested it with its tiny cotton body. Well, anyway, like those dolls, I remember they were like recalled because the dolls got hungry for more than just a single spaghetti noodle they were being fed and got a hunger only human hair could satisfy. And they ate a bunch of kids' hair and kids, I assumed, were like walking into the ER with Cabbage Patch dolls climbing their hair with their mechanical jaws. So this is like a really relatable fear. The alternative, like what happens if you get a drone stuck in your hair? Like to cut your hair off and just have like a single bald spot where every time you go into the grocery store and they're like, oh my God, lady, what happened to your hair? You have to explain that like your husband got his drone stuck in. And what is he doing? What is he doing that this is a legitimate fear? Is he like dive bombing you with it? Are you safe? Are you looking up from the toilet to a drone just hovering over you? Like, stay safe. Oh my God, wear a hat in the house. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Okay. This next one says they were afraid of the pool swamp monster from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Okay, I'll admit I was not allowed to watch this when I was a kid. Not because my parents were buzzkills, but because we didn't have cable until I was 14. We watched PBS Kids and Diagnosis Murder, and that's it. So let me Google this real quick. Oh my God. Oh my God. It looks like raw hamburger meat on a skeleton. Oh my God. It looks like this guy was a pirate captain or like a general manager of a Long John Silver's that got into a turf war with the McDonald's gang. Oh my God. He's just got strands of meat hanging off of him. Like prosciutto drying in the hot Italian sun. Oh my God. And he's got like skinny little toothpick legs. There's so much meat in his top half. How is this being held up? Oh my God. How did you go in a public pool after this? How did you ever swim? Ever again? Oh my God. No, not for me. Not my journey. Okay. Next one. This person said, as a child, they were afraid of swamp monsters that live in the drains. Yeah, I get it. More probable would have been rattlesnakes. Yeah, okay, yeah, I get it now. I was never afraid of swamp creatures, but I am now. Apparently, children's television was designed to make us believe in swamp monsters, apparently. Maybe this is like how parents decided they would stop childhood drowning. They would make us believe that they were like swamp creatures living in our bodies of water. Also, if I found a rattlesnake in my toilet, I would just burn the house down and start over again. Like, no way, Jose, would I go back in there. I already have a public fear of pooping in public. That's one of my fears. I need to do it in the comfort of my home. I need to. So if that comfort was taken away, I don't know if I'd ever poop again. I don't. I really don't. A few years ago, a king cobra escaped and was like running amok around Central Florida. And I had to look into every toilet I encountered. And I'd like hiss into it. And I'd like kick the base of it. Like just in case that cobra was like waiting for me to like just sit down and kill me. No way. Totally okay. A totally okay fear. Yes. Be afraid of shit in your pipes now. Okay. I know I am. I did not have that fear before this episode started 5 minutes, 20 minutes ago, but I do now. Okay. Let's read another one. This one says, failing as a parent and failing my students. Oh my God. Yes. Wow. Yes. Every day, yes. Every day, every single day. Every day I wake up and I like look at my children and I just hope that I'm not completely screwing them up. You know, that I'm giving them just enough dysfunction to be funny. And that like every time I fly off the handle and I yell at them and I just picture them on a therapist's couch one day talking about how I like never loved them enough. Let me just say this. Patience isn't a virtue. Patience is like a commodity. There's like a finite amount a human can have. And sometimes we just run out of it, right? That's what makes us human beings, right? That we're not perfect. What makes us mothers and women is that we fester on those moments of imperfection when we definitely needed more patience and didn't have any. I once read this article, maybe it was a book. I read a body of words that said, if at the end of the day you're alive and your kiddo is alive, then you're doing fine. How you're feeling, how you're feeling about worrying about failing as a parent, like that wondering if you're doing okay, it's the same every mother has ever felt. Like it's our goal, I think, as parents and as people who deal with children, as teachers, as mentors, as volunteers, whatever. It's our goal to make the next generation like a little bit better than we were. And then they'll ultimately raise their kids to be a little bit better than they were. And I think sometimes the best thing we can do for our kids is to raise them to understand that we're also still learning, right? That when we became parents or teachers, we weren't given a guidebook, or maybe teachers were. I don't know if that's part of the curriculum, but we weren't given a guidebook that's like, this is what your child needs. And we just need them, our kids, to help teach us as much as we teach them. Totally get the fear of failing as a parent. Oh my God. This one just says mistakes. Woof. Oh my God, mistakes. Have you ever been so afraid of making a mistake that you didn't do something at all? Raise your hand. Safe space. Would you believe like that I recorded the first episode of this podcast almost 3 months ago? And I just sat on it. I convinced myself that I needed to do more research, that I needed to like build my follower base, to do like God knows what else. I did so much work to just avoid pressing send on the whole thing because I didn't want to do it wrong. I was so like petrified of making a mistake. And I'm talking like work. Like I was attending webinars about launching a podcast and reading blogs and everything told me I should launch with 2 or 3 episodes and I should have people pre-review it, like, etc. So I did all of this work to get quote unquote ready instead of like recording a second episode and just going. Friends, it's like, it's amazing when we're afraid of mistakes. It's amazing the amount of work that we'll do to take the easy way out. And a lot of times the easy way out is just not doing anything, right? Sometimes the hardest things that we're going to do in life are just blindly jump off a proverbial cliff and risk looking like an absolute freaking idiot. But we're only humans. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. Like, we all know this. But it still can be so scary to make a mistake, right? But those mistakes that we make and, you know, decisions that we have that maybe negatively affect us, they're just tiny little potholes on the road we're driving towards our end goals, whatever they may be. So here's a tip for all of us who are like afraid of making mistakes. Stop asking yourself what's the worst that can happen. You know, focus instead on what's the best that can happen. You'll find that that's a much more powerful motivator than just standing there worrying about worst case scenarios. Okay, this one says, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with reading warning labels after learning about them in school. After reading the toxic warning on a toothpaste bottle about needing to call poison control if you swallow too much toothpaste, I used to spend just as much time rinsing as I did brushing because I believed I was going to accidentally poison myself. Girl, congrats on your rinse. Great oral health. Oh my gosh. Girl, be afraid of reading labels. That's fine. This means you aren't, you're not going to let anyone fool you. Like, reading these warning labels carefully just tells me that you are focused and well-informed and ain't no way you're putting something in your body that could kill you without being extra cautious. Good. Get it. Have you ever read the back of a Lunchables container? There's freaking warning signs on the back of those things. Or have you ever visited a public place in the state of California? When we went to Disneyland, because they have like a warning against, or California has like a law about warning against like cancer-causing agents, which can include some plastics. Every building you walk in Disneyland has like a sign out front, a beautiful Disney-styled sign, but a sign out front, regardless, it says like, hey, come on in here and you could be exposed to cancer. And you're like, great. Be cautious is what I'm saying. Read those warning labels. Okay, this next one says, I'm afraid of what global warming will do to the earth and our daughter is dealing with it. Oh my God. Okay, I didn't think I'd have to think about the inevitable heat death of the universe today, but here we are. This scares the shit out of me too. This really scares me. And I know we live in a world where backed science is considered a political opinion, but I think fears like this are like the right motivation we need to change the way we live, and teach our children to, like I said, be better than us, right? Regardless of what you believe, whether you're a spiritual person or, maybe a little bit more agnostic or, whatever. We have one earth, right? One earth that was a gift from the universe or God, whatever you believe in, is regardless miraculously positioned to sustain life. And I think that we should do whatever we can to protect it, period. Be afraid of global warming. Be afraid of climate change because that's what's going to change your behavior and encourage you to change the behavior of others, so that we can live on this big blue orb for as long as we want. Period. Okay. This one just says being forgotten. Oh, my heart just broke. Okay, here's what you do. You find an active construction site, okay? And like put your hands in the wet cement and then like sign your name. Hollywood Walk of Fame, baby. Do one of that. Concrete is forever. Your legacy lives on. But like more seriously, your legacy is defined by other people. Like Hamilton says in the musical, he says, it's planting seeds in a garden that you never get to see. All we can ever do if we're worried about being forgotten or worried about not leaving a legacy or being left behind, all we can do is just be the best person you can be, that we can be to others. Give your time, be generous with your resources, love with an empathetic, warm, open heart, be a mentor. And if that doesn't help and the concrete doesn't work out for you, your fear is forever immortalized on this episode on the internet. We won't forget you. Moving on. This person wrote, everything Sorry if it's not very helpful, but also heights, wasps, and death. Okay, it is okay to be afraid of death, people. We are not in possession of the Deathly Hallows. We have only our mushy, doughy bodies to get us through life. And heights and wasps can bring us closer to death. So yes, fear them. That's fine. Also, I love that you apologize to me for telling me you're afraid of everything. It's okay to be afraid of some things, but like, if your fear is completely paralyzing you from doing something new or outside of your comfort zone, you're never going to live. Plain and simple. You're just going to be checking days off the calendar until you die. And that's what should scare you. If your fears are overwhelming and plentiful, I highly recommend you call someone, you talk to a therapist, or talk to someone you trust, because you deserve to be happy and in high spirits and not afraid of everything. Moving on. This one says, the unknown. I hate not being able to plan ahead for anything during COVID. Peak anxiety. Oh my God. Yes. I hate making plans with people and saying shit like, we should get together, when all this is over, or talking about next year with like a big old shrug emoji. I mean, I've accepted now, I think I've accepted 8 months into 2020 that things will never be normal again. Things will never be as they were. This is like, I'm sure, a post 9/11 world when our parents were like, soon we'll be able to bring our nail files and full bottles of shampoo back on airplanes, and here we are almost 20 years later. This is our new normal. And what we've experienced through this COVID-19 crisis is trauma. It's shared trauma, and it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel anxious and out of control. Take care of your mental health and take care of yourself, because we're all going through it. We're all going through it, boo-boo. This same person also submitted a second fear and said, literally the dark. Being in a room with no lights on makes me very uncomfortable. I'm 30. Okay, if we have learned nothing from this episode, it's that everyone should answer yes to the question of, are you afraid of the dark? I am 30 years old, and when I go to bed and turn off the last light in the house, like, I still have to run and like dive bomb onto my bed in case like a shadow creature is hiding underneath my bed and tries to grab my ankles. On a deeper level, isn't the dark the ultimate unknown? Wow. Noodle on that for a minute. Noodle on it in a well-lit room, though. This person said, orca whales, obviously. What about this is obvious? Sure, orca whales could rip you limb from limb with their massive jaws, okay. And they could just flop and land on you when you stand underneath them as they jump over you Free Willy style, okay. We have a second fear from this person as well. And they said, also, Nicolas Cage waking me up from my sleep to tell me we're getting twin dolphin tattoos. Oh my God, I know who wrote this. Hi, Danny. And for everyone else, if this wasn't your fear before, it's your fear now. So, okay. Side note. When I moved to Orlando, I don't even remember how it started, but me and my friend Danny became obsessed with Nicolas Cage. I think it's because he's both a national treasure, pun intended, and the star of like so many terrible movies. But Danny and I worked together. Like, we sat catty corner from each other. Our offices were. And when I left and took time off for my wedding, when I came back to the office, my desk was covered in pictures of Nicolas Cage. Like, I found printouts of his face in the middle of like a stack of Post-its. Okay, like they cut up and cut out his face and like pasted it on a picture of my baby. I had like a poster-sized headshot of him hanging off the back of my desk chair. He was glued to the back of like hand sanitizers. He was in my drawers. He was under my drawers. He was under my chair. He was everywhere. It was something really, really special. Oh, so now when you close your eyes tonight, imagine him waking you up in his voice and he's being like, we gotta go. We gotta get these dolphin tattoos on our lower backs. And it's like Lisa Frank style. Thank you for that. I needed that today. Well, you all shared your fears. So, I mean, I think it's only fair and it's about time that I share mine. So I guess like my biggest fear right now is putting myself out there and failing. Like doing this podcast is tough sometimes, y'all. Like I really believe in the work that I'm doing and I feel so passionate about it, but I'm like getting personal. Okay? And I don't want it to blow up in my face. It's hard. It's hard to do this, but like hearing from you, like hearing from all of you, it makes it easier. Like I can't put into words how much your Instagram comments, your emails, your texts mean to me. I just love you. Oh my God, I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your fears. We will be right back right after this. Thank you for listening today. And thank you to everyone who submitted your fears through Instagram and shared their own experiences with me. If you want to be able to do the same thing and share your experiences and stories with me in future episodes, be sure to follow at the CampaignHer on Instagram. There you can also see pictures from this and earlier episodes if you need a visual of the "Are you afraid of the dark monster?" to haunt you as it has haunted me since the moment I first laid eyes on it. You can also follow me on Instagram at Allie Jean Pippin. Support the podcast with sticker purchases now available on Etsy. And now when you purchase 2 or more stickers, we'll give you 1 for free. Just use coupon code, podcast at checkout on Etsy. The link to which is in the description of this episode. If you want more CampaignHer stories, you can visit our blog. Oh, it's starting to storm. Do you hear that? What a perfect end to our spooky episode. Visit our blog at CampaignHer.com. And do not forget to review and subscribe. Please, 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 please. I've got about 4 weeks to make it onto the new and noteworthy segment of Apple Podcasts. And every review and every listen counts. So leave a review, send to your friends, have them leave a review, lather, rinse, repeat, and stay out of public pools. New episodes drop every Thursday. Until then, you're doing great, sweetie. Bye.